is forming. So the old ones, now they're all dressed in mourning. I don't watch that much TV. It doesn't mean that much to me. It doesn't take a prophet to see. We're just waiting on that last train. So long.
Good evening, everyone. Rhythm Roads Cafe is back on. I'm Nick.
Tom, Danny,
And I'm Will.
And Will. Danny's got a little thing he wants to promote for our viewers here before we get started.
for you out there in the viewing audience, today we're going to be sipping on this coffee here. This is called Napoli from Kimbo. Okay, it's got a touch of chocolate in it, I guess, and some other stuff. You know, but next week, if you want to drink along with us, I'll show you what we're going to have. I try to get these off the wall brands. This one is Jacob's Wonder Bar, okay, and it's made by Phil's Coffee. Feels. So it's out of San Francisco, so you can go get it at your local whatever store and drink along with us, and you can. The
So
whole
he's not
thing
like
is
Phil's Pizza in Bridgeport.
no, not to be confused with Phil's Pizza in Bridgeport. Also, the whole object here is for you to tell us what you think, okay? Also, you know, we have a component here of music. If you know some new band that's coming out that has a demo or something that you want to get on the air, please link up with us. Send us a link. We'll be glad to listen to it and give you our opinion, which is, of course, a professional opinion, because we're all in the music business for more than 3 decades.
Except for me, I'm barely alive for 3 decades.
Well, he's a newbie, okay, but
I'm
the
learning.
guy-
I'm learning.
the lefties over here, okay, they've been around for 3 decades.
So tonight, you know, we each take a turn to picking topics, and I'm just really getting tired of sports and paying for sports, no matter where it is, whether it's on TV or live. For the young whippersnapper over here who's barely the age, you know, sports was always free. It started on the radio. Okay, everybody listened to ball games on the radio. I remember in the 70s listening to the Hawks in the Stanley Cup on my radio, crying when they lost the 7th game to the Canadians at home.
And why weren't you able to see the Hawks on TV in the 70s?
Because it was a tough. Well, back then they just didn't advertise. They didn't broadcast it on TV.
They didn't broadcast
They didn't
it.
broadcast it.
Because Old Man Wirtz felt that if he broadcasted on TV,
They wouldn't
people
go.
would not come to his
Well,
stadium.
But also the NFL did that too. If you remember in the late 60s, early 70s, when they started national broadcasting, you couldn't get Bear games in Chicago. You either
Right.
had to go to a bar that had a
In Wisconsin.
closed circuit antenna,
Right.
or you had to go to Rockford.
Right.
Okay, and that was the only way you could see Bear home games.
Yeah,
And then-
blackout zones. All the NFL teams did them.
well, yeah, but then they lifted it when they said, listen, if we sell out the home game, then we'll lift the blackout. Okay, that was the rule.
How magnanimous of them.
Well, but there was
Yeah.
a period of time when they didn't sell out all their games, so a lot of these teams were like, yeah, we're not going to put it on TV if you know we can't get people to come. So at the time it made sense, but it's getting to the point now where every time that you want to watch some type of sporting event, it's starting to cost you money.
You're talking on television.
Well, let's take. What does television mean? Okay?
Marquee.
I mean, let's try
Yeah.
to define what TV is. You know, at one point you had 4 channels, and then
Is over the airwaves.
and then we had Sports
Sports
Vision
Vision,
with the
yeah.
little box that you flicked
Yeah,
on
that
if you
killed
paid
the White
for it.
Sox.
That killed the White Sox.
It really
Sports
did.
Vision.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And now you have this sports channel, Chicago Sports Channel, that's going on where the Sox and the Hawks and the Bulls have tried to create their channel to kind of compete with Marquee with the Cubs.
Which is the
And-
Bears and the Cubs and
And
some
they're getting killed.
stars or something. Who's the stars?
I don't even know. I don't even know.
And
But
the Sky. Who's the Sky?
The Sky is the female professional
Oh, okay.
basketball team.
Uh-oh. I'm gonna get some nasty
the
letters. now.
WNBA team.
The WNBA team. There you
Alright.
go. And you know, at first you had basic cable, and you didn't mind, you paid whatever you paid for basic cable when basic cable first came out, and you had ESPN and some of these other channels and whatnot. And now, I mean, if you want to watch Thursday Night Football, you got to have Amazon Prime. Okay. Now my wife has her own personal delivery truck for Amazon, so me having Amazon Prime isn't that big of a deal. But at Thanksgiving, I was having a conversation with Tom Brenneman, which he used to be an announcer for the Cubs. His father is a legendary announcer for the Cincinnati Reds. At one point, he kind of owns. He's the equivalent to Harry Carey of Ohio. And Tom's the whole family's involved in the sportscasting business. And I was sitting down with Tom. I says, you know, Tom, it's getting to the point where I'm going to stop watching NFL games that aren't the Bears. Okay, because I'm not going to pay for this channel, I'm not going to pay for that channel, and I'm not going to get this service, and it's getting to the point where it's getting real pricey, and these guys are making a lot of money.
Well, I think you missed a step in your history too, because the cable packages ended up getting so expensive. I feel like when Netflix came out and Amazon Prime Video and everything, everyone's like, oh, thank God, like
Yeah.
I don't need to pay to have MTV that I'm not
Right.
going to be watching. I just get this. I can stream the movies I like on it when I want it. And, then they started adding sports, of course, and now Amazon Prime's got some, or sometimes it's on Peacock, sometimes it's on Paramount. So, yeah, not only is it you're paying monthly for a service, you're paying monthly for like 8 services, 9 services.
And you can't switch back and forth on those games because the guy has to reboot
Oh,
everything.
that's-
and why
that's the worst.
that just aggravates me. to death.
So inconvenient.
It is.
What's
it's
the,
terrible.
what?
Like if you're
everything's
streaming and you want to go to another game,
If the
it
Bears
takes.
are streaming on Peacock and let's say you want to have money on the Steelers game, so you might want to watch that for some reason. I don't know. They're on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
It's not just changing from channel 200 to 212. It's closing that app, going into the other one, finding the live stream for the Steelers game. Then that needs to load and buffer. Then it's going to autoplay an ad. And so changing the channel
Yeah.
has turned into like a
I
4
have
minute
to
go through
ordeal.
the
Yeah,
ad.
I don't-
And that's
I
for
don't-
me, who's quick with the
See-
remote. I don't know what to take you guys.
I
So-
don't watch sports, so I don't know.
You don't,
It's
huh?
a major trivial. Yeah.
Oh man, it's gotten bad.
You know.
Listen.
It's like you got a guy. He can tell you. He can sit in a tavern and tell you everything the Chicago Bears need to do. And he doesn't have a clue what he needs to do, right? But he can sit there and talk for hours about the White Sox.
Oh, everybody's got an opinion on their sports teams.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
they
a
got the
whole-
draft coming up. My kid is just,
Yeah,
he's
like the draft
apoplectic right
isn't-
now. He's analyzing everybody, and
The draft is an event now. They put it on
Oh.
TV and charge commercial. Like I'm gonna watch.
Well, don't
this.
you-
we went to the one. They had 2 of them in Chicago, and I went down there when my boys were younger.
The
We had a
chan-
blast. It was great.
The channel that you watch FanDuel on, don't you have to pay for that? You have to pay to see if you can.
I don't.
You
do
can-
FanDuel,
you
which
can-
is another beef of mine.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm watching a game and it's like the first quarter and it's got Joe Blow's got 2 carries, 7 yards. I don't care. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't have a sports fantasy team. I'm not gambling on the game. I don't need these innocuous stats that completely go like on the what do they call the Highline, the Chiron,
Chiron.
all night long. It drives me crazy.
I still haven't figured out how to take the little guy out in the corner that's doing the hand signals for the deaf people.
I don't- I've
Okay,
never
I don't
seen
know
that,
how to
but
get it
I-
off my screen.
Isn't it closed caption?
I don't know. I've been looking. No, I tried
So
the
I mean, we're
settings.
getting
It
back
didn't
to
work.
like big hockey fans. Loved hockey growing up. Went to games when goalies didn't wear masks. My dad would get us standing room tickets. He'd put me in a chair when I was like 6 years old. He'd come get me in between periods. And now you can't find a Hawk game. My kid knows how to pirate some websites that he can watch them when he's on his iPad or something. But this new channel that they got, their big problem with Comcast is Comcast wants to charge you like HBO.
Yeah.
They want to charge you as a premium channel to put you on their package where, you know, it used to be the sports channel that was on, I can't remember what it was, NBC Sports whatever it was.
Whatever.
And that was kind of part of your basic or your one tier. And they want to make it a higher tier. And Comcast saying, no, you're going to kill our viewers. People don't want to pay that much. And you said it to me, and I've had other friends say it to me, now you want to stream that new channel that they got? It's going to cost you about $350 a year. It's going to cost you $20 or $30 a month per team to watch that. And I got guys that are like, I'm not doing it.
Well, their defense is that it started in New York Yankees and the L.A. Dodgers, and they put out their own TV channel. And because they had the revenues that they didn't have to share, because all the rest of the TV media is revenue sharing, they, you know, so that the small market teams didn't have a hard time competing. Well, they don't have to do it now because theoretically it's a different corporation. They're owning, a company that isn't a baseball team.
And that's why the Yankees and the Dodgers have so much money to spend. They will pay the luxury tax because they're making gobs of money.
Because they don't care.
Right. You know, I think
the Cubs are like that too, right?
I'm sorry?
The Cubs are getting like that.
Right.
Yes.
The Cubs
Yeah.
are getting like that.
I mean,
Well, that's why they got Marquee.
They're on the same train, but a few cars behind.
Yeah.
yeah. And then that gets down. You know, I should apologize for saying sports is trivial because watching The Searchers 10 times a year is trivial too. You know, but my girlfriend, I don't. What do you? I'm 76. Anyway, my woman friend, she's a sports fan, and she's got me watching the Bears. And she,
You're going to be paying that
Yeah,
$19.99 a month.
And she got me watching the basketball, you know, the NCAA thing. We were watching everything, but she watches whatever shows up on free television. But anyway, she wanted to go to a baseball game, so I go, we'll go to a White Sox game. So, you know, I get tickets at a time. And going to a live baseball game now has become an event.
Yeah.
Like going to a Broadway show. It used to be like we get people to go to a lot of games. I think in 1983, I probably went to at least 30 White Sox games. You know, and you could call up your friends and say, "Hey, you want to go to a ball game tonight?"
Or I'll meet you there.
I'll meet you there, right?
Right.
Now it's an event. You got to get tickets ahead of time, and
$200 at least.
the bleacher bum culture that used to exist at Wrigley Field is totally impossible today.
Yeah.
That a bunch of people would just drop in at the game and hang around with the other people that they met once or twice a week. You know, it's gone now.
Well, yeah,
My
it's a
kids
bunch of trust fund kids from the north side who
Oh.
can get all those tickets. They're the new bleacher bums.
Yeah.
Just do it on their phone.
Listen, you know, we used to. I grew up in Oak Park, so if you're going to go to Sox games, you went to the Lake Street L. If you went to the Cub game, you went to the Congress Street L, and you paid your 55 cents, got the transfer for a dime, and then when you crossed into Austin Boulevard because you were going to the city of Chicago, you had to pay them another dime. Okay, but we would go to games. $2 bleacher seats. You'd bring your lunch. You'd get a 50-cent pop, and we'd sit there all day. And we were young kids, but it didn't. It quite $5 would get you through the day. Now it's crazy. First of all,
$5 won't get you a beer.
beer. It's almost like you
Won't
can't
even
use the
get you
bathroom for that
peanuts.
amount of money.
Yeah.
and
Cut in
then-
line
and
at
then
the John. You know,
Nobody
it's gonna
takes
cost you
cash
$5.
anymore at a game. Everything is credit card.
Yeah.
Okay, no matter what you want to pay for, it's credit card. My kid's at the game, the Cub game tonight. It cost him $20 for the ticket, but he probably spent about another $18 in surcharges to get the ticket transferred and all the other stuff
Oh,
that goes along
Ticketron.
with
There's
it.
another.
Oh, they're the worst. You know, take your kid to a hockey game. Take your kid to a football game. You can't get even when the Bears stink. The ticket's going to be about $100, $125 for the lousy seats.
Well, don't discount what they make up on the other selling items that they have around it, because they didn't used to have Friskers before 1969. After 69, you couldn't
What's a
get
Frisker?
you couldn't get into the somebody who searched you.
Oh, out front. The
Okay.
security. All
Now,
right.
for those of you, because I was amongst the first group of people that they hired to do searching at the bleachers when the Cubs became very hot in the '80s, right? And so I
It was earlier than that.
well, maybe
Yeah, they had the bleacher bums. Everybody wore the yellow construction hat. That was the early 70s.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember
I
that.
get foggy on that. Anyway, yeah, it was a couple years. It was right after or around the time that they got lights, and
Well, yeah, that's way later.
and the
When Wrigleyville became a youth ghetto.
yeah. Well, it became a place to go. Okay, it became a place to go besides the Cubs, which is what the Sox always lacked. The neighborhood support wasn't good. Okay,
No,
because
if you walked in the neighborhood tavern, everybody looked at you like, "What the hell are you doing here?"
yeah, because
But-
you
but
weren't
they
you
didn't-
weren't a union guy. Okay, you weren't a regular rank and file worker. okay?
But there wasn't a whole lot of, outside of McCuddy's, there wasn't a whole lot of places you could stumble out and stumble into it
Right,
at Comiskey
right.
Park.
No, you had to walk a block or two.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't
Even
like you could
more.
go to
Yeah,
Cubby
even
Bear or any of those,
Right.
you know, bars, half nightclubs, that,
Murphy's,
you know,
all
all
those
that
things.
stuff. So yeah, Wrigleyville had the action. They also had the women. Okay, I mean, I don't want to be sounding sexist, but
Then-
it's going to
then-
come out
then-
that way.
Then stop.
Well,
Then
I
stop.
mean, just Google a picture of the White Sox bleachers, then Google a picture of the Cubs bleachers. Make your own decision. Okay, at that point.
Well, I mean, listen, like he said, in the '80s, it turned into a place to go. You'd go to a Cub game, and there people going around, "Oh, who's winning? What's the score?" I mean, it's like, no, aren't you watching the ball game? You're to watch the ball game? No, they're
Yeah.
not. They really weren't. Bear fans, they're there to watch the game, for the most part.
You got to watch yourself about Bear fans. You say the wrong thing, and you're
Bear
going to get a
fans
beer.
Listen, I went to Green Bay. I did not go to a Bear game in Green Bay, and those people couldn't be as. And I had a Bears hat on.
Those guys are nice.
It's a wonderful place to go see football. If ever you get a chance, go.
Well, they
And
own
they're-
it.
The people there are just nice.
Yeah.
They're they're friendly. They're nice. They just, and you know, I see Bear fans when in the cheap seats and the way they treat visitors from other-
Visitors, oh,
It's
hell.
bad.
Yeah, I feel
It
sorry
really
for. I'm
is
embarrassed
bad.
for him.
It is. I'm a big Bear fan, but sometimes Bear fans can be real jerks.
I
And
used
the,
to like
and the other
going
thing
to,
that bothers me is just I wanted to finish because I said it earlier is, you know, all this money is coming from TV revenue streaming. Okay, I mean it's all coming from TV money, and they're paying these guys so much dough. Okay, that it's just really getting out of hand. That the average guy, and we hear it all the time, the average guy with a couple of kids, I mean, if he's lucky to be able to go to a game once a year, that's
Well,
it. Because it's just way too much dough, too
But
much
I
hassle.
hate to sound like a capitalist, but that's capitalism, okay? I mean,
I guess
I
it
mean, I
is.
got to be on the other side of the fence for this one, you know. I mean, it's capitalism, you know. I'm kind of can't find anything wrong with it. If you can charge what you can charge, and people will pay what you charge, that is the standard.
But what and I guess the point that I'm trying to make is I think they might be pricing themselves out pretty soon.
Well,
if they
that could be.
continue to go down this path of charging you for every little thing that you want to see on sports, there's a lot of people like you and a couple other of my friends are like, I'm not doing it.
Well, I'm
And
tempted
then
to.
the advertising and everything else is
I'm
Carol,
tempted-
Carol was tempted to get ESPN
Yeah.
so she could watch some certain. And she's just not going to do it. She's not going to put that money on.
Well, I'm tempted to
that.
get Marquee.
Say
Okay.
the UFC's so bad about that. I have ESPN because I watch the UFC fighting. I have to have an ESPN Plus subscription, and then whenever they do like their big like monthly event, the UFC, you know, 2 whatever, 3 whatever, I think they're in the 300s now. It's like 314 they just had. You also need to buy pay-per-view on top of it.
Wow.
But you can't get the pay-per-view unless you have the ESPN Plus subscription.
Wow.
and what's the
And
pay
that's
per
the
view
nickel and
cost?
diming, like $70 now. That was 60, I feel like, just a year ago, and they
Y-
jacked it up. At
So
some point.
so you're paying to stream,
Mhm.
okay, and then you're paying per event as well on top
Yeah.
of that. And you know, you're part of the younger generation. Will you continue to do that?
No, probably not. It's kind of
He's a
tedious.
lawyer. Come on.
Listen.
I make enough now, but I used to I'd buy it for the month when there's a big event and the pay-per-view on top of it, and then cancel the subscription right away. And just kind of cycle, you know, whenever there was something I really wanted to see. But no, at this point, it's getting closer. I'd rather just go to the bar and pay to
Yeah.
drink their overpriced beer, watch it
Yeah.
on their TV. But, you know, it's UFC. It's like in Florida or something. You can't go to the Bears game every weekend or whatever.
I mean,
or
before
every
the-
other weekend when they're in town.
Before the show, Danny and I were talking about we used to do these closed circuit fights. I mean, big fights.
Yeah, we do these
Of
events.
Sugar Ray and Roberto Duran. There were, I remember doing a couple of Hispanic fighters where, I mean, mean, I didn't speak the language. I was like one of the only, non-Hispanic speaking people in the
Boxing
room.
really, really big.
Huge.
Really big in
Okay,
those
I mean,
cultures.
fill the Aragon at $20-$30 a ticket, and
At the
you know,
same time, they have me at the Congress Theater, and
the thing went down.
I think I saw one. I think it was at the Uptown.
yeah,
Yeah.
they had it at the Uptown too. There was one fight. There was Duran.
Yeah, Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray.
Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we had it at a half a dozen theaters across the northwest side of Chicago. Pulled in more than $500,000 in cash just from those places. You know, some of the tickets were $35 a piece back then. Okay, we're talking nearly 40 years ago. You know, so
So closed circuit, for your edification, closed circuit evolved into pay-per-view.
yeah.
That's basically what it, but you had to go to a venue, or you had to go somewhere where they had the cameras set up or had the feed set up where they could get it, and it wasn't the most reliable. I remember the Congress Theater one time. I wasn't at that one, but I heard the thing went down, and
Yeah,
it-
we
it-
we had a big black
it
cop
went-
with
it
us,
went
and he
bad.
took out his .44 Magnum and shot it in the air, and that calmed it down a bit. Okay.
Oh God.
Yeah. So, again, I'm a big sports guy. My kids are. I used to buy somebody's season tickets for the Bears. I got rid of that. That just got to be way too much. Sometimes we'll do a road trip to a Bear game. We've been going to the NCAA Sweet 16s for the last 4 years.
Mhm.
Start Chicago, Louisville, Detroit, Indianapolis, and now it's going to be back in Chicago next year. So we enjoy going to some of this stuff, but it's just getting to the point where it's almost insulting that. And you talk about like, well, you're lawyers and you got money for it. I'm like, yeah, no, I
Not
don't.
that.
But
No, I'll
but
say
it's
the
not only that, but it's
only-
like I'm not. I don't want to. I'm not going to pay that. It's just insulting to do it.
Because
the-
you
the
grew up in
only-
a different era.
Right.
No, I grew up in
Okay.
this era. The only sport events I go to as a lawyer is when like one of the partners at the law firm isn't using their season ticket. Or there
Why
was,
would they have one?
There was a Blackhawks game recently, and I reviewed the contract for our client's Skybox, and so he let us use it for a Hawks game after that. But even then, like talking about getting nickel and dime, when you have the Skybox seats, they still charge you like $50 for like a 6-pack of beer to
Oh,
just
yeah.
like go in and throw it in your mini fridge. I'm like, just like little 12-ounce bottles. I'm like, what?
Right.
Where does this cost $50? In what universe did it cost $50 to get this here?
Well, I go to
So
Bear games and my
crazy.
kids go, Dad, don't you want to have a beer? I go, not for $13. No, it's it's a buck and a half.
I,
Good.
I
like
thought
going
if you
to
were
a-
buying the a super expensive Skybox, you might get a reasonable deal on the beer.
No.
Why?
It's
Why would
worse
I?
than the regular guys in the stands. And like I was trying to say, when we started doing the search over at the bleachers at Wrigley Field, when they initiated that, the purpose was to sell beer. Because people used to come in there when there was tumbleweed blowing across the stadium when nobody came. They'd bring in their own 6-pack, a picnic basket, they'd make a whole, it was like going out to a field or something, not to Wrigley Field.
But that's what I was alluding to. When I was a young kid, we'd pack a lunch and we
Right.
could bring our food into Wrigley
And then it
and
became-
into Sox Park.
It
you know?
became my job to search you for that lunch
Right.
so that you couldn't bring it in. And then they'd object. You can't search me, my Fourth Amendment rights. And they'd say, read the sign. This
Yeah,
is
it's
not the
bad
government, okay?
But hold on, I think what we are missing sight of here, and we talked about earlier, is how much were the players getting paid back in those days? Because
Yeah.
I'm really concerned about the Cubs pitcher making $5-6 million a year.
Well,
Well,
I
what's he gonna
remember
do,
in the
starve?
60s.
What do you mean? They're up to $100 million.
60s and
Per year?
70s,
That's per contract, I don't
guys that played hockey, they had summer jobs. Selling
Hockey was the worst.
Hockey was where they selling.
Bobby
for-
Hall
for-
used to
for
stay in an
sh-
apartment
Oh,
on
I
saw
Butterfield
it.
Road,
Fighting was
Hillside,
the worst, but yeah.
Wow.
across the street from Q's restaurant.
Wow.
So you could get a real good pizza across the street. But yeah, ladies, my dad had a friend that played on the Chicago Bears, right? I mean, today he'd be like, oh,
Yeah, he'd be living in Wake Forest.
yeah, he wouldn't be living in Austin.
Did you say Wake Forest?
Did I say Wake Forest?
He said Wake Florist.
Yeah, Wake Forest.
Wake Forest.
Lake
A
Forest.
lot of flowers out
Okay.
there.
Well, Carol and I are in August are going to go to Cincinnati for the big tennis thing,
Oh, yeah.
and that, my
Who's
brother.
Who's the big act there?
I don't know. I don't follow tennis. We're just going to go and watch. And I'll meet my brother. My
Novak
brother's.
coming?
And that's why you got to like the Masters. I know you guys probably aren't golf people, but you know, the Masters, they're just their own little entity, and they could just do whatever they want. I don't know if you recall, but years ago, the women were going to protest because there were no female members
Yeah.
out at Augusta, and the president of Augusta at that time, he goes, you know what, we don't really want to put our sponsors in a bad light, so we're just not going to have any commercials, and we're just going to broadcast from beginning to end, and we're not going. And it was like it just took the legs out from under the protesters, but they had the money to do it.
Well, I think wasn't there a big brouhaha at Medina because they wouldn't let Michael Jordan play on the course?
Well,
Remember that?
I've heard a disclaimer, Michael. Okay, disclaimer. There's a rumor out there that Michael still owes somebody a lot of money on a bet on the golf course.
Oh, that was the reason.
And
It was.
he
It
not
wasn't.
allowed- he not allowed
It wasn't
back
that he
until
wasn't Jewish.
pays off.
Okay.
Yes. No. He's played there. No, he's played. Butler, but that's why they used to have what was called the Western Open at Butler, and Butler had some, you know, no women, no minority type of thing, and they said, no, we're not going to play here anymore. And Butler went, okay, fine, and they were fine with it. They never went back.
Which will segue us right into Columbia University.
How segue me into Columbia? Why?
I didn't. I'm just trying to get a little spicier, you know. But
All right, so let's talk about
yeah.
pur-
Trans.
purported women in sports.
Purported
women?
women's sports.
Yeah.
I don't see why we can't just have 3 categories in 3 bathrooms.
'Cause
What's
they
the
don't want
big
it.
deal?
They don't want it.
Who doesn't want it? The trans people?
The trans people don't want it. They want to be identified.
But they're
as
not
what
in
they
control of it.
Want. Well, tell them that.
Well, they're just not in control of it. I mean, just like if you want to have unisex sports for everybody, the boys and the girls aren't in control of that.
One of their advocates the other day said that they should combine the Paralympics and the regular Olympics, and there shouldn't be 2
No.
categories. Well,
No.
but that was
That's putting them in the category with challenged people. They're not challenged. They're
What?
just
I don't know. I might disagree with that.
You see, everything's subjective. What was it though? I guess in sprinting, that guy who has he's like the hooked lever feet.
Oh,
He's like a
Oh,
double
yeah.
FT.
The
He's
guy-
actually
the guy that went to
faster
jail
than a
for
lever.
murder?
Yeah, he's
It was
faster
like-
because he's got leverage on those
He's got
springs.
springs.
Yeah,
the
so
guy that
yeah.
went
Got
to jail
springs.
for murdering his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Pistorius, I think that's what his
We,
name.
we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
find another double amputee and give him those legs.
Yeah. Listen, there's a woman that's been all over the place. She's from Glenview, and the superintendent of school came to the school and made the girls in 8th grade change into their gym uniforms in front of a boy.
Why? What was the
Well,
reason?
I think you need to ask the superintendent, the administrator.
Well, did
that
anybody
question.
ask her or
They
him?
go, these are the rules, and this is what you're going to do, and that's it.
Well, at Fenwick,
Oh,
when I went
so
to,
the boy was allegedly a trans
Correct.
girl. Okay.
he was gonna treat him with shock treatment.
No, they were forcing the girls. The girls say, we're not changing in front of the boy. Okay, he has a penis. We're girls. We're not changing into our gym uniforms
But-
in
but
front
the-
of a
the
boy.
but the
boy's like,
motive-
I am a
and
trans girl, I am a girl,
and this
I
is up
belong
happened in
here.
Glenview,
Okay.
and
I get it.
one of the superintendents of the school came from the office to the school, told those girls, you are changing now.
What do
Well,
you guys think about this,
I
you
don't
guys
know
out there?
anybody, liberal or conservative,
Yeah.
who holds with that kind of thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do.
Oh,
I've met them.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah?
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
I
A lot of
wanna
them
know-
are younger though, because my grandpa's kind of like he was an older union guy.
Well, I mean,
He
what's the
doesn't believe me when I
purpose?
tell him this stuff, but the guys my age, the people my age who are more left wing, more liberal than me,
Yeah.
they are all not all of them are all for it. Some of them are more moderate about
And-
it, but some of them are
and-
very aggressively.
And if you talk
Really?
to the gay community, they're not on board with it. the
No,
whole
some of them resent that.
The transgender movement
I've
at
read.
all.
yeah,
At all.
but
I mean,
it varies, but yeah, a lot.
They look like they're hitchhiking on them.
Come on, we know you're out there. Give us some info, will ya?
Listen.
Danny wants info on where he can find the transgenders.
Yeah.
guys.
You know, Danny,
He's
I
cruising
don't
later.
know.
I want you to join
I
in.
had boys. You had girls. I don't know if they were into sports at the time, but I can't imagine. I know some families where their girls take their sports very seriously, and they've been playing at a young age. They've been practicing travel teams and doing all those things, and then all of a sudden now there's a 6'2" guy, male, I don't care what he's a male.
No, I see
And,
the
and,
point.
and it's like they dominate the game. It's like, why am I out here?
No,
why,
it's-
why do I go through all this
That
work?
is not right.
I think the locker room thing goes a bit too far, but I'm not going to pretend like I care about girls' sports just because this issue came up. I still don't care about girls' sports. And in men's sports, this is not an issue somehow. There's not a whole
Right.
lot of, quote, transgender men who are just dominating the
Right.
leagues, interestingly
Well,
enough.
there's not a lot of yet.
My-
I get confused. Is a trans man
A
woman,
transgender man is a woman claiming to be a man.
Yeah, they don't. They're not jumping on that bandwagon.
They're not really crushing it in the NFL
They're
right
not.
now.
They're not trying to get into the men's prisons. They're like the guys are trying to get into the women's prisons and all that other stuff.
Speaking of women athletes, my granddaughter Louisa, who's a freshman at Peyton High School, made the varsity soccer team.
Yeah.
Is it an all boys or is it a mixed soccer team or is it the girls?
High school soccer. No,
Girls
it's,
soccer.
And
no.
she takes after. She's a pretty good athlete.
you start getting away from the co-ed teams usually around 6th, 7th grade. Sometimes a girl will play if she can't find a team who happens to be pretty exceptional to play with the boys, but then they start separating them. I mean, the women's national soccer team had a tough time beating a bunch of 16-year-old boys.
They didn't actually.
Okay, there
First
you
of
go,
all,
they didn't
it was
actually.
under. I think it was under 15 U League, and they lost.
Yeah.
Didn't Billie Jean King beat Riggs?
Yeah, he was
Bobby Riggs?
103.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was
old.
Yeah, but
103.
was it? I think it was the 2003 Australian Open. I want to say Serena and Venus Williams said they ranked outside of the
I
top 200.
bet you she could.
Karsten Brosh ranked 203rd in the world at the time. He woke up, he played a round of golf, had a few beers, a couple martinis, was smoking in between sets. And I think combined they scored like 3 points on him.
Yeah, I mean, I anybody that says
And
that there's
to
not
Serena-
a physical difference.
No, I
there
think
is.
I think it's one of the Williams sisters. I'll say to both their credits, I'll be generous here. They have said like there was a whole controversy a few years ago about on the news someone said that Venus is the best female tennis player of all time. She's the best female tennis player of all time. The anchor says, "Why are you saying female? Why can't you just say she's the best?" It's like, well,
Oh.
she's not. Objectively, men are better. And she went on the news later. She was being interviewed later and was asked about it. She's like, "Oh yeah, no, like I would not be like top. I would not win in the men's division. I could not keep up with them. Best woman tennis player,
Martina
absolutely.
Navratilova, was a tremendous tennis player. I believe she's a lesbian, and she is completely against all of this stuff. Completely against it. And I just don't get people that espouse to it.
Well, you
I
can
don't
Okay, I
understand
mean, I
why it's such a
understand-
big deal.
we can see it in tennis
Who
though.
cares?
What?
Well, okay, Dina, you would care if you had a girl a daughter that was put in that
Just
position.
make a new category.
They
That's it.
don't want to. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They won't.
Yeah, it's
That's
not a
not.
question
They
of
want
compromise. No
to
one's
be
arguing for
what they
compromise.
want to be.
Well, you know what I do. This is what gets a lot of people that are willing to be tolerant, but it's not enough now to be tolerant. You have
You
to
have to
agree.
be that way.
You have to
right.
be. You have to agree.
Right.
Right. And a lot of people that and this gets a lot of people like me that are Democrats. We're willing to tolerate things, but we don't want to be told we have to believe in that thing.
Well, belief is one thing,
and
be is
they
another.
they get over on a lot of liberals because liberals I don't want to be
Well, it's almost Orwellian because it's a lot easier to just kind of say, you know what, whatever, I'll ignore it, I don't care. To get someone to actually sincerely agree, you have to start to control their mind. That's where you kind of start getting a little too far. You start getting Orwellian, and I think that's why a lot of liberals have a problem with
I
it.
had someone come up and ask me to use the pronoun of they, and I go, I'm not doing that. And I go, what? And I, no, there's one of you, you're not they. What is your name? I'll call you by your name, but you're not a they. Okay?
Tell
And-
them.
and-
Tell them how about it,
Well-
or that.
Well, but I'm not. I don't want to be insulting, but I'm not. I don't buy into it. I'm sorry. I don't.
How
I
often
don't
do
buy
you
in.
use someone's like a third person pronoun when addressing someone directly? I would say you, Nick.
Not
Call you
often.
Nick.
Not often. But again, this is how they start the conversation. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Because
probably
now
not
they
gonna
want
come
they
up.
want to put it out there, and they want to put it
I'll
right in your
use
face,
those-
and it's like, here's what I am, and here's what the rules that you need to follow to have a conversation with me, and it's like, no, I don't.
I'll use
No,
that
not
kind of
really.
a pronoun if I'm talking or writing about a group of people, like say Boilermakers, and I don't want to say his or hers. So rather than saying his or hers, it's just easier to say theirs or them or something, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
that's
mean,
just,
that's
that's
normal.
just a matter of concise writing.
But are you doing that to avoid controversy, or are you doing that just because that's the way you write and that's the way
well,
you
that's
do
a
it?
way to get to express properly. You know,
So
I'm talking about a
semantically.
group semantically. Yeah, yeah. It's not political. It's
Because I was gonna say, if you're doing it to be, you know, non-confrontational, politically correct, whatever you want to use, why should you have to do that? You shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to change how I talk, how I deal with people, just because you think that you are.
Did you ever
something that
read
you're not.
Hegel?
No,
Okay. Then
and I'm
guess
not reading Hegel.
Then I guess
So
I'm
just-
stumped.
Know your
Okay.
enemy. Know your enemy. You should read
Okay.
Hegel.
Okay.
Okay. You'd have to get into a discourse, according to Hegel, to really know your enemy, or to really know not so much your enemy, but your adversary, right?
how do you
Your
get a
adversary.
discourse
They're
with the
not-
Mongols?
I don't.
You could talk
You-
to the pyramid
you
of
know-
Pence
you
and
know
everyone
how-
wants that.
You know how, I'll tell you easy, you become an Italian, and you go over there with your dad, and your dad leaves you there with the Mongol king for a couple years, and you come back with spaghetti.
Yeah.
You know, that's how you do it.
I don't consider them my enemy. I don't consider them my foe. Okay? I just don't agree with them.
Oh no, I was saying
Okay.
Hegel should be your intellectual enemy, ideological enemy.
I mean, again, like Danny said, I don't need to. I don't want to take that approach. I'm the nice guy. I treat everybody respectfully. Okay, I've always done that.
Yeah.
I was 135 pounds working shows for you when I first started working.
Did
and
you hear
I-
that, Tim
and-
Pool?
And yeah, now that's a long way off, guys. I got to tell you, move your Greek mother-in-law in, and this is what you get. But why did I not get my ass kicked every other week working the balcony? Because I try to treat people nice. I would say please and thank you and sir and ladies and ma'am, and it would disarm them, and they go like, okay.
Yeah,
and
do
they
me
would-
a favor.
yeah, do me a favor. Can you not do this? Why? Here's why. Okay. All right. So I've always tried to treat people that way. I was a criminal defense lawyer. I was a public defender. Treated all my clients pretty much the same way. Okay.
Yeah.
So to get back to what you're saying about they're my enemy. No, they're not. I just not
it's-
changing way I deal with you because you want to be pretended you're something that you cannot be, and they cannot be it. I'm sorry. I reject the premise. You cannot be a man if you have the wrong chromosome. It's not going to happen.
I'm saying you don't have to reject the premise. What I'm saying is the premise doesn't need to have such an emphasis on what your reality is. Okay, I mean it could be a low-level, low-hanging fruit. Okay, whether or not somebody's trans or wants to be a trans or wants to compete against a different gender. I mean you can take the position that it's unnatural and it's unusual and it's unfair, and still be okay with the person who wants to do it.
So back to my original position. I'm not going to pretend to care about women's sports.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but
whatever. That
how-
matters the least to
but
me.
Danny, I kind of have a fundamental problem with that. Is if it's unfair and it's unusual and it's whatever you pointed out, why do I have to be okay with that?
You don't have to be okay
Why
with
do I
it.
have to accept that?
I'm just asking why it makes such a priority in your
I don't make it a priority.
Well, some people
They
seem
do.
to.
They do.
Oh,
Okay.
that's the old
That's why.
flip-flop.
No, it's not the old flip flop because I gave you the example of the first thing they say to you is, you got to use they. Why is that the first thing
You just
say
called
to
them
me?
they. You lost.
Yeah.
My conservative younger brother, when he saw my independent younger brother, who he hadn't seen in 4 years,
Politically
came in.
independent.
Okay, well, he was neither Republican nor Democrat.
Right,
and,
right. Independent, like.
like
affiliation.
neutral. Okay, but the first thing he said to him when he came out was, "Are you a Democrat or a Republican?" Hadn't seen this guy in 4 years. Okay, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? Are you conservative? Or are you liberal? Some people just think that way. I mean, they. Did you ever watch kids on a grade school kids on the playground? The first thing they do is they segregate. They find people who are like them or that they like or that they think like them, and they bring them over into a corner, and it's them versus everybody else, okay? They call it cliques. At least the girls call it cliques.
Right.
You know, the guys would call it my gang, you know?
I think most interpersonal relationships are based on that. I'm not going to hang with people that don't agree with either my religion or the way
Right.
I think or what how I live my life. Why would I don't have anything in common to be a friend with them with. I mean, you and I, even though we have diverse thinking, we still are friends, okay?
We have more in common than we have polemic positions.
Correct.
And we're willing to discuss those
but young kids
polemic
can't figure that
positions.
out, okay? I mean, I have friends that are as liberal as can be. They're still my friends.
So that's
Okay.
one thing I liked in law school was, to the extent there were any conservatives at Northwestern Law School who weren't named William.
Oh my God.
Whenever I felt like I needed some backup, needed just someone to talk to who wasn't crazy, in my opinion, I would look for yarmulkes. The Orthodox Jewish kids who'd actually wear a yarmulke to class every day.
Yeah, because they're
9 times out
conservative.
of 10, conservative guys. We talk about the latest Ben Shapiro episode or something. Get some common ground in there. And then I go back to a classroom with 90 people who all hated my guts and thought I was crazy.
It's interesting because my kids' generation, a lot of those kids are really starting to lean way conservative. They're more into religion. Charlie Kirk is a guy that a lot of young kids follow. He's the anti-establishment guy. If there
I
is such a
always
thing.
love that when when Charlie Kirk went on Gavin Newsom's podcast,
Mhm.
and he was like, Gavin Newsom told Charlie Kirk, so my son's a huge fan of yours. So you got the
His-
governor of California.
His
that
podcast,
kinda
his
turning point.
podcast election night was hands down the best thing that I watched all night. His numbers, his sources, his field guys, they had numbers before anybody else had them, and they were right spot on. It was really something to watch. And it was my kid that said, "Dad, Mom, I didn't mean we Fox or whatever other station we had." He goes, "Dad, let's turn on Charlie Kirk, watch his podcast tonight, see what happens." We
Well-
turned it on, and it stayed on for 5 hours.
You want to
What
understand
a
what
kid
the
should
other
do.
person's up to. As a former trade unionist, and I was on the locals negotiating committee, so we have antagonists. They're looking out for their financial interest, and I'm looking out for mine, right? And I understand where they're coming from, and I respect it, because I don't expect them to be any less looking after themselves than I am. I'm looking after myself. You're looking after yourself. We're going to argue. We're going to reach an agreement. And we're going to sign a contract here. But you understand the person's motivation, and you share that motivation. You're just coming at it from the other side. But you're the same.
I think
I've heard say the exact same thing at the risk of giving Tom a heart attack? Steve Bannon made the exact same argument. He's like, I watch every day? MSNBC. He just keeps saying, I want to know what they're talking about. I want to know where they're coming from.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I watch
Yeah.
Fox all the time.
you got a question over there or a comment?
Yeah, you guys got a question. It's from John. He says, I agree with Nick about not having enemies, in quotations, and treating everyone the same. My question is, where does one draw the line and say this has gone too far?
I don't know. I think when it infringes on either your own individual belief, or does it cause a danger to your children? I think those are some of the lines that you have to draw. Now, what does that mean when I draw that line? It probably means I'm just going to disassociate from the person. I'm not going to club them over the head and throw them in the bushes. I'm just going to not engage in that anymore. I'll just remove myself from the issue.
I think that he's talking to, or she, I don't know if it's a he or she. Next time, just give us a first name so we know who we're talking
It was
to.
you
They-
said John.
they're-
You said
Oh, John? I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
They're
John.
asking.
They're asking, yeah, they're
Yeah.
asking.
See, that's
Um,
a place to use
any-
there.
anyway.
You don't know what the person did, you say there.
And
They are.
anyway, it's just something that I think has to be democratic. I mean, a group of people have to decide, whether they're the Board of Education or on some sports board that defines the standards for the competition, what the standards are. If people say that they want to change the standards to fit their thought of themselves, they can find an existential universe to do that in. But this is not an existential universe. This is a reality-based
Tell
thing.
Miker at his local school that he's going to find some existential place to go with his children.
Yeah.
It's not reality, Danny. I'm
I
sorry.
kind
I'd
of
like to
agree
think.
with Danny in a way, but I think he's a little off. I think it's democratic, and I do think that, largely women tend to vote for the left. They tend to vote for Democrats, and so a lot of the women who are in these sports are the ones who support this kind of stuff, in theory, in the abstract, until it's their medal that they're losing. And so I think to democratize, I don't think it should be the school board or the Illinois State High School Athletic Commission. These girls should just say, I'm not competing. I'm stepping down. There was a female fencer recently who took a knee and said, I'm not facing, a trans girl in this competition.
Well, they should take the argument that this is
Democratize it.
just another way that men are getting over on women.
J.K. Rowling's been saying that a lot, and all it's gotten her is death threats, it seems
Well,
like.
but it's
But again, you
That's
disagree.
not-
You
it's
disagree. You get a
valid.
death threat. I'm probably going to get
Yeah, I
mine this
still-
week. Thanks a lot, fellas.
I don't think
ladies,
that's like
gentlemen,
a lightning
whatever.
strike, like
Well, if you
revelation.
choose to change your gender, no matter what age, you're making a choice.
You can't.
What do you mean you can't
You
choose?
can't
If I
change
choose to
your
have
gender,
wheels, I'm becoming
Danny.
a bike. I
That's
can't
the
choose to
whole
have
faulty
wheels.
premise that I believe.
Okay.
You can't change your gender.
How about if
The
you
only time
decide
you
to
can change
chop
your
your
gender
legs
is on
off at the
Halloween.
knees and get those springs so that you can win at the Olympics? Do you have the ability to do that?
I guess you do.
Do you have the freedom to do that?
I guess you do.
As long as you don't chop off the penis, but you chop off the legs at the end of the knees, you're okay.
But you're not saying that you are something that you're not. I'm just a
Yeah,
legless
you're
guy
saying
that's
you're
running.
a human being
No.
that can do a run, that can run
No,
like the
no,
rest of the
no,
human beings,
no,
and you're
it
not.
ain't.
You're
No,
a cyborg.
It's not. It's
Yeah, sure.
you can't equate the two. It's not
But
a
like,
good analogy.
if someone
I'm sorry.
chopped off their legs and then tried to convince me they were born without legs, they would still be lying to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take some issue with
Well,
that.
you're saying that that somebody who chops off their penis says that they were born without a penis? They
Tell
don't
me,
say
even,
that.
Trying to tell
even
me
if they
fundamentally
chop
I'm something
off their
different.
penis,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't make them a woman. It doesn't make them a female.
No, of course it doesn't.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
can't change your gender.
There's an ideological bent
We
to
have,
the message.
Obviously you can, 'cause
redefined.
people have
we've
done it.
we have
Whatever.
redefined what it is to accommodate this type of situation.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's two aspects to it. One is physical and the other is mental. Okay? I mean, I've heard a lot of your objections are mostly physical. What is the mental objection? I mean, what if you thought of yourself
Every
as
single
liking?
one of their brain cells has either XX or XY chromosomes. That's the difference.
Well, I understand that
and-
part of it. That's biological, but what it doesn't
Yeah,
it doesn't give you the
This
mental.
is like a Gnostic heresy brought into like a
The-
new
And
form.
people have a foot fetish. There's no reason biologically that they have a foot fetish.
Well-
but when they see a foot that they
No, of
like,
course they do.
almost can't help themselves, okay?
Like, there's a biological
So,
reason. It's mental. But
to-
the brain's part of your body.
You sounding like that guy Jensen.
Aren't some of these
You're a unified
aren't
being.
some of these people? I think some of them is something physical with them.
Well, you think, but
I
do
mean,
you
you
have
have
proof?
hermaphrodites.
And here's, I think the American Psychiatric Association has
Yeah.
probably failed people in this regard because instead of them trying to say, listen, what you identify as, what you want to be, what you hope to be, what you really want to be, you can't be. Okay. Instead of doing that, they're going to go, we're going to do all this other stuff just to make you feel better that that's
You're
what
going to
you
go
are.
against 100 years of Gestalt therapy, where the female side of me says that I feel this way. The male side of me says I feel this way.
Okay.
The angry side of me says I want to punch you in the mouth. The peaceful side of me says I don't want any violence. That's a Gestalt. You're made of all those different little
No,
psyches.
you're made up
Yes,
with
you are.
X and Y chromosomes.
No, that's
Yes, you are.
biology. That's not
That is
mental.
biology. Of course
Well,
it is.
you know, if I encounter one of these people and they want to be addressed, I'll just out of good manners, I would just address
Yes.
them as they wish to be addressed.
Yeah.
Just like I don't like anybody addressing me as dude.
No, I
say,
don't like dude?
you don't address me as dude, young man.
I don't
Hey,
mind,
you,
dude.
you may address me as sir.
What about Malord? Can I get away with a Malord?
There's a lot of women your age that don't want to be called ma'am.
So
But I
do
mean,
we
man,
wanna-
but manners comes into it.
Is there
really.
anything that we want to revisit from a past episode that somebody didn't get off their chest that maybe wants
Well,
to?
Angie didn't call in, huh?
All right.
Somebody asked me what was the answer that Angie Bianca was going to give for her thoughts on how to stop gun violence. And we got into this roundhouse discussion. She never got to her answer.
I thought I heard her answer, to be honest, is that it starts at the home with the family.
Yeah,
You
she
gotta
did say
take-
that.
You gotta take the reason that kids want to have guns out of the equation.
I think she said like that will help correct the behavior. It's the
Right.
behavior that's the problem.
Right, right.
Okay, so the physical production of armaments was not in her solution.
No.
Not that
And
I-
I don't know how that
I don't want
could
to put
be.
words in her mouth. But
Yeah.
And
That-
I
yeah,
don't know how
that-
you
Well,
grade
she
that.
didn't bring that up. Let's put it that way.
I know we might have talked about this, but you know, whenever there was this school shooting, you know, the teachers at the grade school had all the kids wear orange, and they walked outside and protest.
Mm.
Okay, and then I said, well, did you guys go back into school and have a conversation on what it takes to like change the Second Amendment?
Well,
And they
what do
went
you
like,
think?
No, and I go, well, of course not. Okay, of course you didn't, because they're just saying, oh, we got to get rid of guns. We got to get rid of guns. Take the guns off the street. Now nobody should have a gun. Nobody should have a gun. Nobody should have an AR. Nobody should have a handgun. Nobody should have this. Okay, well, how do you do that?
Well, it's
Okay.
that's an unrealistic solution because it'll never happen.
But
And-
even if you want it to be realistic, how do you do that? They don't teach the kids that there's a process for that. They just throw them out there in orange, and the kids don't know why they're wearing orange, okay? And they just
Well, they
run
don't
around
teach
and then they go back
civics
to
either.
class. What?
You know, they don't teach civics anymore in grade school
Correct.
either,
Yeah,
which
it's
is
like a
dumb.
week of social studies class, which social studies is now 8 classes that shouldn't necessarily be.
Yeah.
taught.
the
Did you have to learn the preamble before you graduated 8th grade?
Yeah, we the people
We
of
the
the
people of the
United
United
States
States
of
of
America, in
America,
order to
perfect
form a
union,
more
sure, yeah.
perfect union,
Yeah.
established with.
And you learned it.
Carry on doing this in our
And you
posterity.
learned it.
And I'll tell you something else. I got a shout out for a couple seconds because I know we're running late. This Pope that just died, I'm a Catholic, I'm an Italian. I'm not a practicing Catholic, but I gave $100 on Christmas directly to the Vatican, and I got a receipt from the Secretary of State. A thank you. The year that he got elected in the conclave, I think he saved the religion. Okay, because I saw it killing itself. You had these anti Vatican II fraction of the conservative end of Catholicism that followed this guy Lefebvre, Bishop Lefebvre from France, I believe. it
How
was,
can
right?
you be a
I
conservative
hard
Catholic and
disagree.
not believe what the Pope tells you to believe? That's a
It's-
paradox.
Yeah,
No,
it's,
there's a difference when he's speaking infallibly ex cathedra.
yeah,
versus
well,
him
yeah,
speaking
ex
his opinion.
cathedra, right.
No, I think you're totally wrong on that, Danny. I think that the only growing faction of Catholicism right now is actually
Is the
younger
conservatives.
people. It's younger conservatives, like
Yeah.
Nick was mentioning,
I
who are
will-
going to Catholic mass.
I am Eastern.
Yeah,
I am Eastern Orthodox, and I got to tell you, the Eastern Orthodox Church is getting a lot of converts, a lot of younger families that are converts, because they like the strict
Conservatism.
structure of the church. Okay, and they see the church not adapting but staying as it originally was.
Well,
in terms of my faith.
I think the modernization's the problem. The modern world exists; it's out there. So the church needs to offer something different, not just a worse version of what they already have. And that's why I think that the traditionalism is
Well, I
is
think
the only way to go forward.
I
let's
think
say.
the reason the conservatives turned against this pope was because he took a stand on the southern border. Okay, that was contrary to Trump's stand.
A lot of my
You know, and I
Catholic
think
friends.
that's all it was.
A lot of my Catholic friends really, really liked him.
Oh,
Oh,
I think
they-
he saved the
they-
faith.
Yeah, I was very.
We have
I was
this-
surprised by it because I really didn't, know
We-
that he was that
Yeah.
Well, we have
popular
we
among
have
the
this
faith.
group called the Lefebvre Catholics. Okay, did you ever hear of them?
No.
Yeah.
They won't go to a mass unless it's in Latin. So I talked to a couple of them once, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to give you my own Dan D. Sylvester little test. Suscipia Dominus sacrificium de manibus tuis alalum gloriam nomini sui ad utilitate quoque nostrum totiusque ecclesiae sue sancte."
Okay.
What did I say?
Yeah.
Okay, they hadn't a clue.
Listen.
Okay, they didn't even know what part of the mass that came from.
Well,
The-
the
the gr-
priest, the role of the priest is to do religion for you.
Yeah,
That's
in their mind, yeah.
Listen,
Not you
my-
don't join into
My
it.
mother-in-law's a Greek from the old country. She likes to hear the Greek in the liturgy. She likes to hear the chanting and the singing all done in
The
Greek. It has a
ritual, yeah,
cadence,
makes them
okay?
feel comfortable.
Except the church that we go to now, it's about 70 to 80% are either converts or they don't speak Greek. So
Yeah.
you have you have a similar situation that they'll go to the church that does all Greek, but you know what? It's still the same service. It's still
Yeah.
the same service, whether it's in Greek or in English. So that's I mean, our church hasn't changed in that respect.
Well, the Catholic Church hasn't either. I mean, the way that they administer the sacraments, the way the Mass flows doesn't. The only thing that changed was the language, okay? They became more Protestant in that respect. They
Right.
talked to the people in language, in the common vernacular, is the way that they put it. All right, guys.
Now Mass takes an
Well,
hour and a
it's-
half instead of 40 minutes.
Oh gosh, you don't even want to know how long I was in church last week.
Up,
But
down,
as
up,
the
down,
Orthodox
up, down.
Greeks say, Christ is risen. Whatever.
Yeah,
you wanna,
and next week
It's all right,
is
Christ is risen.
right? Christ is risen. The
next week
response
is
truly
Tom's,
he is
right?
risen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In response to it, yeah.
Tom's the host for next week. Next week we're going to be drinking at where
No,
did I
the
go
other
with
guy.
it?
Phil's.
Phil's with a Z.
Wonderman.
Here, Phil's.
With a Z.
Phil's.
Phil's.
Phil's
We're going to
with
be
a Z.
drinking Phil's.
Phil's.
all right?
Phil's.
Coffee, Jacob's Wonder Band.
Out of San Francisco, so it's probably got some hallucinogen. in it. I wonder if
Phil's
it's got some
Francisco.
mushrooms or something in it, right?
You know, that used to be a red town.
Oh, it's San Francisco?
Yeah, Harry Bridges.
Here we
and,
go.
they had a
Save it
general
for
strike.
save it for next week.
It used
All
to
right,
be a
guys.
put it on the money liberal
So-
town.
So
So,
good night, Mrs.
Mrs.
Calabash,
Calabash,
wherever you are.
Been around the low and the mighty, heard the sound